Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Reed Mascola, founder of Paranoia Rising Games, a Toronto-based publisher whose mission is to publish games that have quality components, evolving storylines, replayability, and deep social interaction. Their first game, Vigilante, launched this week on Kickstarter. Reed, welcome to the Binge. How are you doing, my friend?
Thanks. Doing great.
A fellow Canuck, a fellow Canadian. I love
it. big community of board game designers in Canada, for sure.
Especially you're in the Toronto area, right?
So, I am. Yeah, I'm right in Toronto.
Huge community. I'm sure I know your face looks very familiar. I'm sure I ran into you in one of the Snakes and Lattes test nights or something over the past couple of years, maybe at the Breakout Con. So yeah, it's a pretty intimate group. I mean, it's a large country. There's a lot of developers, but it's amazing how many times you see somebody's face like, hey, I remember we met each other before. So that's awesome. Congratulations, man. You launched your campaign literally less than 2 days ago. Already hit 124 backers. It's probably even more since we started the podcast. I got that number about an hour ago. 67% of your goal. You are well, and obviously the math, anybody that knows the math of these things, you're well on your way to fund. I don't think it's a question of whether you're going to fund or not. It's just how much further you can stretch past that goal, which is pretty exciting. So as a fellow Canadian, let's start off with how this all came about. So you, what's your day job? What do you do?
So I work for Mercedes. I'm project manager.
Okay.
Yep. I guess what kind of carries over is attention to detail and being aware of timelines. And
so now hopefully there's no car smashing graphics or anything like that.
No, none of that. No, there's clear separation. Just superheroes and villains.
You get to work, they're like, hey, what the hell, Reed? What's going on? What's this? When did you start playing games? When did you get into gaming?
When I was a kid, got into board games. I remember my brother always used to bring these weird European board games back home, and try to remember like Zularetto and Catan and all those games when they came out. So that was a lot of fun. But I actually got into trading card games competitively, kind of through the end of high school and kind of through my early adulthood. And that's so trading card games. And then when I felt like I was maybe too old for that. I mean, not that you can be too old for that, but I felt like I was too old for that. I switched to board games. Maybe I became less competitive. I don't know.
And were you doing like house rules or anything like that? Like, is that part of your history of, taking a game and saying, I want to modify this and kind of fix something I don't like with it, or?
Not so much house rules, but actually, I found there were a lot of games that I would like to be out there that weren't. A lot of themes that I felt there was a lot of room for new games. And
so that was kind of the impetus of saying, okay, there's a gap in the market, and I'm going to be the guy to fill it. Now, you make a pretty bold claim in your company description when you talk about, we're going to quality components and, having social interactions. So you've kind of stuck your stake in the sand, so to speak, right? Where especially in the social interaction. So is that will that stand now for every game you launch is going to have some kind of social deduction component to it, or? Almost
every game. So the next one, not so much after Vigilante. But after that, we've got another one that, back to social deduction.
And then why did you decide to get into publishing? So, that's kind of a crazy thing to do, right? It's a huge time sponge. Rarely do people, do it as a full-time job, right? It's usually, I think one of our prior guests called it a jobby, where it's, it's a hobby, but it's really a full-time job hobby that doesn't pay really well. Why did you get into publishing? What was the hook?
Well, I mean, I started designing, and I did the silly thing, and I bought artwork pretty early on. And then I realized I've got this artwork. I'm probably not going to be pitching this game. So I got deeper, and then I got deeper. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do this.
It seemed to make sense. And so for this particular game, how did you come up with the idea?
So the idea, actually, the story has kind of been something I've been kind of building in my head over a while. Um, I mean, a long time ago, when I kind of started, this started kind of evolving in my head. I was thinking, you know what, maybe I want to write a book. But I've always been into games, and I think I kind of wanted to bring that story out through this game. Um, and yeah, I really think I'm a big superhero fan. I love Marvel, I love DC, and I think there are a lot of good games out there, but there aren't a lot of good games that have a team element to them. Where you watch a lot of, I mean, you watch the Avengers or Justice League or any TV shows these days. It's all about a team of heroes and synergy, and I think that also lends itself to replayability, because if you build a different team of heroes, the game's going to be different.
And when I saw the artwork and was reading up on this game, it really made me think almost of that old TV show Heroes that came out a decade or so ago, where you've got kind of like regular people, but it's almost like heroes in real life, right? So less kind of fantastical. And I mean, some of your artwork, which is beautifully done, by the way, we'll get into that in a second. These look like people, like something like this would just break out in the middle of the street, right?
Yeah,
and two people start fighting and so forth. So I thought that was kind of cool. Now, was this something that was entirely created like from your mind, or did you have advisors, or did you have like colleagues that help you in the development process, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I mean, the story came from my mind. The design initially came from my mind, but as you know, when you start playtesting, really your game becomes a contribution of everyone that's played the game. So yeah, so I think I owe a lot of the streamlined mechanics to a lot of the great people that played my game and given feedback.
So the play testers and so forth.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'll just make a comment, because I know we've got several people in the lobby watching. Someone was saying that the link isn't working in the event invite we have here. Rest assured, thank you, Chandler, for your observation. We will have that super clean by the time or within 5 minutes of our interview concluding. We'll put up a fresh link so everybody get it. So when people go to back this game, which I hope you do, click on the link and show Reed some love. So I'm going to share my screen for people that are actually watching live or watching a record afterwards. Can you kind of walk us through how to play the game? Like how do you play this game?
Absolutely. So basically, this is one of those games where you've got a hidden role, and that it's as simple as if you complete the mission on your hidden role, you win. So that hidden role, as you can see here, is either good, evil, or neutral. I love. I mean, I'm a big Ultimate Werewolf player, so I love neutral. I love third team. I love that whole concept of just that chaos that they bring to the game. So the good and evil players have conflicting objectives. So either the good players are going to win or the evil players are going to win. But the neutral player can basically share a win. They're just kind of out for themselves. They kind of cause their own carnage in the game, and they kind of just try to complete their own mission. So the way it works, you're building a team of heroes. So everyone starts with one hero, and you're recruiting new heroes. You're fighting villains, taking damage, trying to make sure your team stays alive and healthy. So as a good player, you're essentially so you're trying to get a combined total of 7 villains in your jail for every good player in the game. But with some of the scenarios, because there are different scenarios that will impact kind of the game, you won't necessarily know if you're good. You won't necessarily know who else is good. So you have to try and figure that out through the game.
And then so say you figure out somebody else is good. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure Johnny over to the right of me is a good player. the benefit of both of you now knowing is that now you can kind of work together to achieve like a communal goal then for the good guys. Is that kind of how that works?
You got it. Yeah. So there's different cards, cards with player interaction through the game. So you're going to have some cards that will let other people draw cards. You'll have some cards that will heal other players, and you'll have some cards that will damage other players' heroes. So knowing that information really helps kind of guide you to that. It also knowing what count you've got. So if I've got 6 villains in my jail and I know you're good and you've got 8 villains in your jail, then I know that between us, we've got that goal. We just need to hold. So we need to basically survive to the end of the game with the villains that we've got in our jail, and we've completed our goal.
And how do you capture the villains? Like, what's the key thing for capturing villains? How do you do that?
So essentially you just fight them. And the way that works is the villains will come out. They attack first. You're going to have a matrix kind of on your player map of 4 heroes. So top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And on the villain card, there's a matrix that shows you who takes what damage. So hero 1 takes 1 damage, hero 2 takes 2 damage. So after the villain strikes, then you're going to add up the attack of all your heroes, because your heroes are working as a team, and you need to meet or exceed the villain's health. And if you do, you beat the villain. You might have to resolve an effect, and then they go in your jail. And it's
That's
as simple
cool.
as that.
And when you perform an action that impacts another player's heroes, is it obvious you're doing it, or is it kind of like one of those social deduction things where, oh, I didn't have a choice. I of the options I had to play this. I didn't want to attack your guy. Really, we're on the same team. It just happened. Is it kind of one of those things, or?
Yeah, it definitely. There's some of that, and then there's some that is more. I'm making this active choice to damage your heroes. So you got a little bit of both.
It reminds me of like Saboteur, which is one of my favorite games. It's so simple, but the laughter you'll have around a table when you have somebody trying to tell you with a straight face, no, I start telling the opposite direction because I didn't have a choice. I'm trying to help you guys by going the other way, right? It's like, come on, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's also, there's every player is going to have allegiance tokens, so you can actually get perfect information through the game. So if you're good, you're going to have 2 good tokens. You're going to have 1 neutral and 1 evil. So if anyone ever sees 2 of your allegiance tokens and sees the same, that you're good or that you're evil, then they know for sure you're on that team. But the beauty of that is players can lie about that. So if I'm evil and I see one of your tokens and it says good, I can say that I saw an evil token.
It's kind of like the secret Hitler game where someone's like, I didn't. Yeah. That's what a fascist would say.
Yeah, I drew 3 red policies. I couldn't do anything.
So, and my understanding too, the way those tokens work is you start off at the beginning of the game as you're kind of doing the initial setup. You kind of shuffle them, and then based on your card, you're then picking out 2 tokens to represent either your bad, good, or neutral, and then you have one of the other 2, either neutral or bad or good, and then those kind of go. You shuffle those and they go face down. So you don't even know really where your tokens are. So it's the other players that are kind of figuring that out.
Exactly. So that you won't even not know if I lied about your token.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long does the game take to play? How long is the game?
So the average game is about an hour and a half.
Nice. And is now, I noticed it said, I think 3 to 5 players, which I guess makes sense for social deduction. I don't know how you do social deduction with 2 people.
Yeah.
That's a very quick game.
I haven't
You're guilty.
It out yet. If anyone knows, please tell me.
So have you done anything to try to pull some of these other groups in? So the groups that I think on a previous version of this game, there was even 6 players. Sometimes people are saying, hey, can you find a way of doing a 2-player game? What kinds of things have you done to try to accommodate those people? Or is it just like, guys, to have the perfect social deduction game at this length, this is how we have to structure it?
Yeah, I initially tested a bunch of options with 2 players, and really couldn't find anything that was up to par with the quality of the 3 to 5 player scenarios. And with 6 players, it was actually a little bit too long, because it's not so much a pure social deduction game like Avalon or like Werewolf. or like Secret Hitler, but it's a really more of like a game, a strategy game with social deduction kind of intertwined. So it's longer than like sitting down to play Avalon, but there's more depth to it.
It kind of reminds me a little bit like, as an analogy, would be like Catan, right? If I play Catan with like 3-4 players max, I'm good. 3 is probably ideal for me for timelines. If you get into 5 or 6 people, it's excruciating.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I can't. I don't know if I have attention deficit or I just can't. Like I cannot sit there for that long, especially the turn. How long it takes for the turn to come back around. It's I find it quite painful. So with this campaign, this is not your first time doing this particular game. So you tried to launch this one over a year ago. I believe you pulled that campaign, correct?
I did. I canceled it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that you learned on that prior campaign that you've changed going into this one? So kind of at a top level, what are kind of the big buckets of what you changed?
So the biggest things, 100% was graphic design. Is so critical. Even just for the look of the game, and most people will just say, "Oh, the art looks different," but the art are the images. The graphic design is the template of the card, the template of the board. So I completely overhauled that because I had done it myself previously. I self-taught on Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo, and I was learning these things. I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe it doesn't look so bad if I do it. I don't know. It looks pretty bad. Now I got a professional to do it, and it looks so much better.
Oh, it looks slick. There's no doubt about that. It's a visually very appealing game for sure. Yeah.
The other thing, if you noticed, I had a funding goal of 35,000 in my previous campaign. So I didn't really. I had a couple of reputable manufacturers I was quoting with, but they were the bigger ones, say 1,500 minimum order quantities. So my goal was unrealistic. I didn't realize how much kind of goes into community building and building a following. It's a lot, especially if you're a first-time creator.
Yeah.
So one, I definitely wanted to shave down the goal, and I managed to do that. So it's now at 10,000. I found a manufacturer, again reputable, but that does 500 minimum order quantity. So that's a big.
And is the plan that if you get your funding to a certain level and it justifies it, then you can lower that cost even more on your end, which you can invest maybe in upgrades or whatever. If you can do like 1,000, and I assume you're printing this in China, are you, or where are you printing it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things you changed?
Well, there was added content. Definitely new heroes and new equipment and things that I added kind of through the year.
How many unique cards are there on that note? Because that was one thing I was going through. I was like, there's a lot of cards in the city deck and the event. How many unique pieces of art do you have?
Good question. Definitely, I want to say like somewhere in the realm of probably like between 100 and 150 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's almost 300 cards, and probably closer to 150.
How long did it take to put that together? Like, I'm just like 150 pieces of art is a huge number, right? Has this been in the making for like more than 2 years, would you say, or
5 years? This game.
5 years.
Yeah. So I probably started buying art around 4 years ago, maybe. And I've got so I've worked with 4 different artists. I've got, I'd say, 3 doing the bulk of the work, and they're all pretty similar in their styles. So that's kind of helped me because I've been able to get more done at once. Of course, it's also more costly, but it's been fantastic. It's really exciting. I mean, for me, that's one of the most exciting things is getting a piece of art back once you've given direction of what you want to see.
Yeah.
And
is it all digitally drawn, or is it like painted and scanned? Digitally drawn. So again, if they need to make edits, it's not as bad as if you're scanning something that's been painted, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
And then I noticed the intro video on your Kickstarter page. And again, anybody listening or watching, at the very least, do yourself a favor and watch the intro video. It is very, very high production value on it. Very well done. Like, where did you outsource that to? Like, I got to give props to whoever did that video. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was actually a friend of mine had worked with him before. He based in Wales, but now I think he lives in Spain, and he's not in the board game industry at all. Yeah, I mean, just does amazing work. I don't know what else I could say.
Yeah, like the ambiance, the voiceovers, like just the whole package. Like it was really like a wow. That's I want to get the contact for that guy when I do my next video.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so what are some of the other things you changed? So I noticed that this is this a 3-week campaign you have right now?
Yeah, running for 17 days.
And was it that long before? Was it longer before?
I think I had it for a month before.
And then why the change? Why did you decide to go shorter this time?
Because really, I mean, majority I find come on will back on the first day.
Yeah.
And then like let's say like 45 to 50% on the first day, and about maybe 40% on the last day, and then the rest is kind of spread out through the middle of the campaign.
Yeah.
So I think in particular, I think it was a good decision for me because I'm not like necessarily kind of a CMON where like every day is a new stretch goal. Mm-hmm. I need to make the campaign exciting throughout, so I need to make sure that I've got enough content to fill that. And definitely, if you're not unlocking stretch goals every day, it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, a shorter campaign means I can get going on the game faster. So kind of a bonus.
Now, you've got the manufacturing and everything all lined up. Is there any main things that, like, what's the biggest kind of work to be done, like when you finally close the campaign?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest work to be done, and some of it has already been done, is just getting the files ready for the manufacturer. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, putting together the pledge manager, kind of the typical things that you would go through in a campaign, but everything's there. So all the files are pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the campaign was reading some of the comments when you did this the last time around, right? Some of the key learnings you've brought forward. One of the things you said is you wanted to have more in-person playing with people at conventions and so forth. And this is literally right before COVID hit. So
yeah, that didn't happen.
So it may not have happened, but how did you kind of pivot? What did you do instead? Like, you must have done something.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, like as soon as that happened, mid-March, really my game didn't get played until it got up on Tabletop Simulator again.
Nice.
I was able to play a 2-player game, but I mean, as you know, here we were locked down. Like, I think Toronto is the most locked down city in North America.
Starting Saturday again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was limited to one other person. So actually, I wish I had a 2-player version of my game, but unfortunately, yeah.
Now, is it publicly available on Tabletop Simulator? Like, if somebody wants to try this game and play it, like, is that something they can do?
Definitely. Yeah. And the cool thing is I invested in it, and I've got somebody that implemented it that is really good at scripting.
Okay.
So all the setup is automated. So you just have to put down your scenario, press the button, and everything just goes out.
That's awesome.
Decks get shuffled. Everyone gets their cards. Yeah.
It makes such a difference. We did this on a recent game as well. Which is a card-based game. We won't have to talk about that one, but it is on Kickstarter right now. But the card
to my
it might be related to that pillow behind you there. Yeah. But there's the part of setting up the board was so, like, it's time consuming in a digital, like, you can do it quickly, like bang, 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 bang when you have physical cards, but when you're actually having to manually cursor over and deal a card at a time and get it in the right spot, it's excruciating. You're going to suck up so much time. And so if you can automate that, where you click a button and the system shuffles and deals to everybody and bang, you're ready to play. That's awesome, because hopefully people enjoy it and they want to play another game. Say, let's play one more. Okay. Hit the button, reset it, and away you go. Now, is there a link on your website or anything? How can people find that quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, so I do have it on my website. So it's paranoiarising.com /vigilante. So I've got a link to Tabletop Simulator there. I've also got a link to the campaign there. So apologies that if I didn't send the right one to you. Just please check it out.
And just for anybody that is looking for that, I want to make sure it's clear. It's Paranoia Rising, not Paranoid Rising, right? Because you won't find it. So Paranoia Rising. Find the website. There's a link on there. Maybe you can even arrange some tests with some people who want to play. Get maybe you can bless them with your turn at the table and see if they can take the game creator down. I always find that funny when you play games with people. A game that you've created, you are target number one. Like, people just love the bragging rights of being able to take the person who created the game down, which I think is just awesome and hilarious.
Which they have done. So actually on my group, Vigilante Heroes and Mercenaries, I am setting up Tabletop Simulator kind of teaching games. So if anyone wants to learn, then definitely join the group, and I'll be setting those up.
And again, that group is Paranoia Rising as well, or?
So that's a Facebook group called Vigilante Heroes and Mercenaries.
Vigilante Heroes and Mercenaries. Maybe what we'll do is I'll get a link for that one as well. Sure. We'll stick that in the show notes, because that sounds like an absolute blast, so people can try that. So what, after this game is kind of funded and done, like what's the next thing coming? Like, are you already focused on your next social deduction game, or what are you guys working on?
Yeah, the biggest, the one that's furthest along after Vigilante is Vigilante Story Mode. So it's a cooperative game, so there's no social deduction. There is player interaction, but not social deduction, unless somebody wants to be the traitor. But it's a kind of like a legacy style game. So you play through a story, and you build a team of heroes, and those heroes and the equipment carry through from chapter to chapter. And there are going to be replayable chapters. So the idea is that you get more scenarios out of it, but also all the cards are compatible with Vigilante. So you can add more cards into Vigilante, have more replayability.
So is it like, so just so I'm clear, so is this like an expansion, like a standalone expansion that you don't need the base Vigilante to own? But once you own it, if you own Vigilante, you can add to Vigilante to make Vigilante even bigger. Is that what you're saying?
You've got it. Yeah.
Okay. And is there going to be a solo version of that as well? I know Richard Mack is in the lobby asking that, so I got
perfect.
Get that question in there.
Yeah, 1 to 4 players. That's what I'm playing right now. I still got to see if I want to up that to 1 to 5, but definitely solo mode.
Oh, that's super cool. And then, so when is that going to come out? Is that like another Kickstarter coming after this one? Is it going to happen this year, or how does that come about?
So I'm definitely going to wait until Vigilante is delivered before creating another campaign.
Okay.
But kind of in the interim, it still hasn't gone through blind playtesting, but it's gone through lots of playtesting. And it's in a really good place right now. I've got, I want to say, about half the art already.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, it's pretty far along. And
same artists, right? So it's all going to kind of fit. I saw a post today, and I'm not sure who it was that posted it. It was regarding, I can't remember the game, but the picture showed the expansion cards were a different size than the person's regular cards. Like, and the artwork doesn't even match. And what the heck is going on with this? So it's so crucial that if you're going to kind of build out this universe, right, and build out this story and these characters, and you want these different games to kind of work together, it's important to use the same artists, right, and things like that. So that's awesome. And then, so this one, Vigilante, when does it hit? Is it going to ship? Like, what's the ship date?
So I've got the delivery date set for March of next year.
Okay.
But I mean, I've backed over 100 Kickstarters, and I know how delayed things get.
Yeah.
So the March is really a heavily buffered date. So I'm going to deliver this thing as soon as I can.
I can promise you, nobody would have predicted that a ship would have got stuck in the Suez Canal.
No,
right? And stopped. It literally stopped global shipping for a week. Like, stuff happens, right? So you can't predict everything. You can kind of do your best to say, we think we're going to hit this date. We're going to put some buffer in there to cover it off. But ultimately you gotta, obviously you're going to get games to your backers as fast as you can. And it's always better to be early than to be late. That's for sure. Right.
Yeah, and Austin Powers' popularity has skyrocketed since then.
Exactly. Well, Reed, so once again, if people want to back this Kickstarter, go on Kickstarter and just literally type in Vigilante, you'll find it. I'm going to update the link in our show notes so people can find that very quickly. We're also going to add in the Facebook group. So if people want to join the Facebook group and try this game out and play with other people and organize some playthroughs while they wait for the game to come, maybe build your expertise. So when you actually get your physical copy, you can crush other people, which is always fun to do in board games. We'll put that in there as well. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I really do appreciate it. And I want to wish you all the best of success with this campaign.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. You take care. Cheers.
You too. Bye.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply join the Facebook group Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.